For today's episode, we have wonderful stories of many survivors who were able to overcome their autoimmune disease. These are people who had been struggling with digestive problems, celiac disease, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, colitis, polymyalgia, cervical cancer, ankylosing spondylitis, polycystic ovaries. You're going to find out about what these people experienced. It might make you a little teary-eyed, to say the least. Our team was able to gather these stories in person. Betrayal's director, Jonathan Otto, sought to capture what the true meaning of autoimmune disease is in everyday life. He helped us get to the bottom of what's truly going on inside the homes behind closed doors. It's not the condition, it's not even the physical pain, it's people that it barricades us from, people that need us and people we need. Wait till you hear how this story ends.
I remember my mother coming home and I was crying. I was a 6-year-old boy and I'd just seen a commercial on television by the company World Vision, and it was about child sponsorship. And I remember I'd seen these children and I could see that they were suffering. And when I told my mum, my tears were rolling down my cheeks, and I said, "Mum, like, these children, they need help." And I remember just feeling what it was like to see suffering and to feel moved. And I remember also what it was like to hear the voice that was coming through that commercial. It was like that you can make a difference. And even just being a young boy, obviously I was very impressionable, but to hear those words that I could do something about it, that had a profound impact on me. I told my mum we had to do something about it, and she responded in the smartest way I think any mum could. She got me involved in that mission. She had me get involved by delivering newspapers house to house, and through that money we were able to sponsor 2 children, me with my siblings, obviously with my mother. I actually ended up becoming an ambassador for aid organizations through later years of my life, in my late teen years, and then traveled through Asia and Africa and ended up experiencing some incredible things that was so formative for me, and formative in the way I could learn how to communicate what suffering was, what it meant to me. That's what brought me to this project. Autoimmune disease is claiming so many lives. It's taking away the quality of life. It's causing so much suffering for so many families, and it truly does really upset me to my core. I feel that it's wrong. I feel that it's so upsetting that people have been lied to, and that this has been imposed on families, and it's like some of the most precious and valuable years of people's lives are just spent in misery due to these diseases that can be prevented and turned around. We just need the knowledge and the information. So when Dr. Tom asked me to be a part of this and to come with him in this mission, I could see his heart, and I could see, what had happened to him. I could see the tragedy that he's experienced, and I wanted in. If you're stirred, it's your mission too, and I think that we're all called right now to an important message in an important time in the world's history, to be a part of a group of people that stand for the truth. You and I are a part of that mission. By standing up and shining our light, you can make a difference.
Was in December, I had a really severe bladder infection, and we were going on holiday, and a friend of mine prescribed me some antibiotics, and it ended up in my kidneys, and I was really unwell with it. Anyway, we went on holiday, and I came back and I started having really severe gut symptoms. And I've never had an issue with my gut before. I was a 3 times a day regular Gold Star member, and just suddenly, I had all these symptoms, either bloating, flatulence, diarrhea, constipation, just from nowhere. And after about 3 or 4 months, I went to see my doctor, and she said that I had IBS. And I was like, how do you just suddenly develop IBS? Just like overnight. Irritable bowel syndrome, which is supposed to be, all these symptoms that could be either flatulence, constipation, bloating, all these sort of things. And they say it's triggered by stress. So it was a very stressful time because my father-in-law was dying of cancer. And sort of fit the profile of what they were saying. Initially, I thought the constipation was caused by just having, bread and stuff on holiday. We were in Andorra and eating a lot of sort of stuff I wouldn't normally eat. So when the initial symptoms came on, I thought that was caused by that. And then after a few months, because it wasn't settling down, and I never really tied it together with maybe having had the antibiotic. Because in South Africa, if you have an antibiotic, they automatically prescribe you a probiotic. It's part of your prescription. Whereas in the UK, that doesn't happen. You have an antibiotic, that's it. Nobody really looks after the gut after that. So didn't really think anything much of it. I thought, okay, well, now I have IBS. All my sisters suffer with some form of bowel dysfunction. So I just thought, okay, I've got to live with this. Then I had really severe fatigue to the point, my ex-husband was traveling a lot at that point, so I was raising the children by myself, and they were about 5 and 7 at the time, so a full-on active period of time. Come home in the afternoons, 4 o'clock, I'd fall asleep until about 8 o'clock, wake up, try and deal with whatever they needed doing, and it was just completely crushing. I couldn't even walk up the stairs. Then I started having strange headaches where I was losing half my vision, and I had a history of suffering with migraines. So I thought, they've just come back. And I didn't realize at the time I was actually having clinically isolated attacks of optic neuritis.
My chief complaint was, I'm an RN and my husband's a surgeon, and I've been limping for 8 years. It would kind of come and go. It would get so bad, I could just barely walk around my house, and then it'd go away again. And eventually, as time went by, it just stayed. And I went and had my husband, x-rayed my feet and put me in a boot, thinking it was plantar fasciitis. That never helped. We thought maybe I had a stroke I recovered from, or we really didn't know what it was. But when I went to a functional medicine doctor, he did a lot of testing on me, and I got on a special diet, and I had a whole lot of other things I had no idea was related to all this, which is neurological, that started improving. A couple of them that were really scary. One of them was for about 15 years, periodically when I'd eat, I'd choke on my food. And I thought, oh, I have asthma. I am anxiety ridden. I'm not paying attention when I eat. But then I realized I was choking even on water. Sometimes I'd choke and I'm not even eating anything, just like the saliva in my throat, I would choke. And in fact, it was so bad sometimes when I was eating, I would actually run out of the house and just be like, trying to catch my breath.
I guess it kind of all started around 2011. Up to that point, I had not had really any symptoms, anything to speak of. So around 2011, first thing I noticed, I was out actually doing some bicycle riding, training for a bike ride that I do every spring, and I noticed I was just extremely tired for some reason, more so than I normally would be. Didn't know why, but that was one of the things I noticed. So kind of just dealt with that. Then in the first of the next month, I had a physical scheduled. Went to that physical, and come to find out, I was anemic, severely anemic. So that was a surprise to me. And that kind of kicked off a lot of the things we had to explore. My general doctor sent me to a hematologist to check the blood. My blood levels was 50% of where it should have been. So I was way low on the very anemic at that point. So he gave me some iron infusions. We got things kind of settled out right there. Then we started a protocol there, working with the hematologist to get the blood levels back up. And during that course of time, he noticed that he couldn't figure out why I was anemic. He knew I was, but he didn't know what was causing it. So he sent me to a digestive and liver specialist who did a battery of tests, checked the intestines out, and that's where they diagnosed the celiac. There was some damage to the intestine, the walls of the intestine. So diagnosed celiac, basically told me have to stay away from bread and wheat, and kind of good luck at that point. So Didn't really have a lot of advice other than that.
I had a father who died early, what I consider early, late 50s, so I didn't want my life to go down that same path.
Did your father's loss devastate you?
Yeah. Yep.
Tell me about it.
He was a smoker. He'd smoker for most of his life. Had lung cancer. Died at 59. So, yeah, didn't want to go down that path. Yeah.
You miss him?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it motivated you?
Yeah, it played a part. It's recognizing that the system that we live within can let us down because half the time you can't get the truth out of the system.
What would you have wanted to say to him?
If we could have found alternatives to help him quit sooner. And even then, once he found out, find alternatives to even how it's treated. I have 4 sons, and he knew 2 of them. He didn't know the last 2. Yep.
You really loved him.
Mm-hmm.
And you wanted to be able to say to your kids, here's my dad, this is my dad. I'm your dad and you love me, this one's my dad.
Yep.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Terry, because it's like, this is why health matters. It's because this is the pain that it causes, and it matters for everyone.
Yeah.
I had severe inflammation, and it just affected my mobility, and I could hardly walk. It was just, to me, it was embarrassing. So.
How were you embarrassed?
I didn't know I was gonna get sad. Mine personally, it affected just my physical appearance too, because I just had a really bad rash. So it just took over my entire body, and I had large whelps and a lot of swelling. So it just was not very pretty to look at. I think just because I just felt out of control, and that there was nothing that I felt like there was nothing I could do. And I wasn't getting any help or any guidance on how to fix it.
And when you say out of control, like, what do you mean? How did you feel out of control?
Because I felt that after going to just countless doctors and nobody had answers. So I just felt like I'm trying to take something that you're supposed to do and supposed to be able to help me with, and you're not helping me. So I felt out of control, that there was nothing that I could do to fix it if there was nothing that a doctor could do to fix it.
Yeah. And did you lose hope?
Oh yeah, I was very depressed.
What's it like to give up hope?
It was hard. I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to do anything. I couldn't do anything. I could hardly walk. So I just had no motivation.
I felt like I didn't have any hope. I woke up every day wishing, I hate to say it, but I wish that I died in that accident back then, because it was just so traumatic to deal with day in and day out. and have something that you love to do. Go to work and travel and I don't know, it just wiped clean in a flash of an eye. So I had a lot of friends distance themselves, and I lost a lot of friendships along the way, and I was like borderline schizophrenic. That's what it looked like multiple personalities. Like one day I'd be great and saying, I'm gonna get better, I'm coming back to the show, and next minute like I'm, you know, crying, hysterical, paranoid that they're out to get me and like they're, you know, trying to fire me, all this stuff. Like, but it was the concussion. It was something I can't control. And I remember them telling me this. I was sitting down at the poolside one day and they're saying, yeah, it's so strange because nobody knows how to approach you right now, because one second you're okay and the next second, like, we don't, you know, you're freaking out and stuff. And like to a normal person that doesn't have brain trauma, I'm sure that looked really weird, you know?
Lost sensation all along my ribs. And I started seeing some of the guys at work, you know, the people neurologists there, and you know, just because I was working with people that were in the medical field, and the one guy said, "Oh, it sounds like you've got transverse myelitis." So I thought, "Oh, well, I'll probably just have that." And didn't link the gut, the eye, the transverse myelitis to anything. Then in the July, so this all sort of kicked in the December, January, and then in the July. I went to visit my father-in-law, who was just in hospice, about to die, and I thought I'd go see a neurologist while I was there. And I had a brain scan, and they found an isolated lesion on my brain. And I was having strange symptoms. I had Lamiette's symptom. I don't know if you have heard of that, but it's when you look down, you have the sort of electric shock going all the way down to your feet. And I mentioned that again to one of the practitioners, and he said to me, "I want you to see a neurologist. It's not a great sign to be having neurologically."
I just thought it was anxiety. I went to an allergist and did a bunch of testing at an allergist and thought I had asthma, and I got the stuff that you inject yourself with in case for anaphylactic reaction. I got on, I had some emergency asthma medicine, but we never really knew what it was. And one of the scarier things was at night, sometimes I'd be sleeping and it was worse when I had a cold, and I would wake up in the middle of the night and not be able to breathe. So much so that I'd fall. There was one time it was really scary and I fell on the floor, and for a good 20 minutes I was like, you know, like just not being able to breathe, and never connected that all this was related. It was all a neurological thing that was going on. I had so many things, and seeing that I can't eat a certain way, and it's something that affected my body from a very young age. When you've had some of these things 15, 20 years, 30 years, some of them, you don't even think it's unusual because you've just had it for so long. You just think, I inherited that dizziness. When my son, who's 21 now, was 6, and my husband was out of town, took 2 of them to Disney World, was home with 2 of them, and I got really bad dizziness for 3 weeks. I lost about 10 pounds. I thought, well, maybe I got a virus. I finally went to the emergency room. They did a bunch of testing on me. They're like, we can't find anything. And some of these things just came and went over the years, and you just don't connect that they're related to anything. So as I was getting worse, about the time I went to Osborne, I would trip very easily. I would fall.
Another thing that the hematologist discovered was my liver enzymes were extremely elevated, triple what they should have been. So they also did some tests on that, did a liver biopsy, couldn't find out there was autoimmune hepatitis was going on in my liver. So the liver specialist basically said, okay, the treatment for this is going to be steroids, and I've seen that with my parents. They've taken steroids for different ailments in their lifetime, and I did not want to go to that. Didn't want to deal with steroids.
Why not?
It takes some terrible side effects on you.
Like what?
Oh gosh, in my family's experience, you swell, you gain a lot of weight, and you can only stay on them for a period of time, and you have to get off for a while and cycle back on and off. It just is, you get very dependent on it.
I remember whenever you would go in the bathroom and cry.
I'd go in the bathroom, or I'd tell a client, I'll be right back, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, just so I could sit down.
Chris, what's it like for you to think about that, and because you were very present to what she was going through, what was it like for you to see your wife go through all these things?
It hurts, because there's nothing I can do at all. It's not a mechanical thing or a money thing that you can work on or you can pay to have fixed. We would go to every specialist in the country. I mean, she's got a 3-inch binder full of medical records and pictures, and everybody, like she said, everybody said she was healthy, or that there was nothing wrong, her blood work was great. And you can't have somebody with those conditions that can't walk, that wheeled in on a wheelchair in the emergency room and say there's nothing wrong. There's clearly something wrong. She's 24 years old, she can't walk. There's a problem.
Did you feel that the medical institution was letting you down?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How did you feel about that, Chris?
It upset me a lot. Because I'm willing to think that if a doctor had an issue, they would go to another doctor and that would be great. They would get hooked up. Not saying money-wise or anything, just saying that they would get fixed. And then here we are, and we couldn't get anything fixed. So it was almost like nobody wanted to absolutely say, yes, this is lupus, here's how we're addressing it. They would say, well, you need to go to this specialist. And you would go, and they'd say, no, we don't do that, this person does that. And then you'd go there. Each time was like a 2 or 3 month wait. So you would have 2 or 3 emergency room visits between each doctor appointment to get steroids and to get pumped up. And you would go, and I think she had like 15 or 20 prescription pills above the sink. I mean, that's wrong.
I'm in college now. I went to OU and I went to A&M. And then this summer I went to Disney World. And I decided I was done. I decided that I was going to just eat the normal food there and not get the gluten-free food that they had. So I did that for about a week. And I came back and I got really sick for like 2 months straight. Like the last 2 months I just had like really bad like gas pains and really bad just like we thought I had to go to a gastroenterologist to get scoped. And then all because of like me getting off the diet. So like that really was a huge wake-up call for me, because after Disney World I came back and I realized that like it really is a big deal. So now I've been like fully on it, cooking for myself, fully on the paleo diet, like no grains and whatnot. Since I've been on it, I used to have massive migraines. It was completely went away. I used to have like really bad, not asthma, just like sniffling in my nose and stuff. That has been much better also. And I used to, 2 other things, when I was a kid, I used to have really bad nosebleeds and I used to have really bad stuttering. And those have almost completely gone too. I haven't had a nosebleed since I started this 2 years ago. And the stuttering has almost completely gone, as you can see. So, I mean, being on the diet, you know, it shows me that that change is a good thing. So, you know, going from eating the crap to eating like I am now, that, I mean, also has convinced me, like given me confidence to like join other clubs and whatnot, be, you know, outside my comfort realm and meet other people. So it's also, like I said, it's somewhat not like with the eating out, you know, you think it would degrade your social life. It also helps you by like that way, you know, change. So I don't have to like, every time I see a girl, just like run away pretty much. Like, I'll be honest, it's what I used to be like. Now, more confidence, like I can actually talk to them and whatnot. It's like, and I know, yeah, it's great. It's much better than it used to be, that's for sure. Like I said, I mean, I didn't think this was like completely legit until stuff like that started showing up. Like it's like I was getting that much better, and like the stuttering, the nosebleeds, the migraines, all that stuff started like just went away. Like things that you didn't even know about just completely go away. Like I said, the migraines, and then like you get a lot more energy and stuff. It's weird. Like things you don't know that you have will just go away over time. You just feel better. I mean, I think my mom, and especially, 'cause she's the one who really pushed me to do this. So, I mean, I'm really glad that I'm here today to talk about it. So.
My son takes me to a match, and I'm supposed to know. Because I'm doing it, but it was kind of just started to do that. But if I didn't do that, it's really like one of the biggest things
It's just, you know, I've always trusted my body. It's always worked really well. I've been quite athletic, and suddenly my body just didn't work anymore. It just didn't do what I wanted it to do. And I don't know if you've ever had any neurological symptoms, but imagine trying to pick up that glass and your hand's doing this, you know, and it's just not doing what you're telling it to do. So there's this complete disconnect between what you want and what your body's giving you. So there's that sense of betrayal. And also, you know, wanting to go for hikes and skiing and having an active life, which is what I love. And you can't do that, and you feel betrayed by your body because you're going, well, why are you doing this to me?
It started out with just a rash that kind of looked just like a razor burn, or just a real faint, prickly little, almost like an allergic reaction. And it just kept spreading. It would get further and further. It kind of started at my feet, and it just worked its way up my body. And the rash would just get larger and just spread wider. I had severe joint pain. It would hurt to bend my wrists. It would hurt to, you know, close my hands. My ankles would hurt. I couldn't stand for very long. That was pretty much what I was experiencing. I was, at one point, I had blood in my urine and severe stomach pain, but that came on, you know, throughout the process a little longer. But it was mainly the joint pain and the inflammation.
How did the condition you were facing affect your relationships?
I had to cut back from work. I couldn't work as long or as much. I wasn't able to experience things. I was very young. I guess I was about 21 when I got diagnosed, and I couldn't do anything. I could barely, you know, go and hang out with people or go to the movies, or I couldn't, you know, sit in social settings, and so it affected that to where I just kind of had to stay at home a lot, and I couldn't work, so I just was at home a lot.
And then what would you do at home?
Nothing. I wouldn't do anything. I'd watch TV. I ended up getting a dog so that I could have a companion. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. I just, I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to explain how it feels. It's miserable. You feel just, I don't know, you feel judged. I feel like people were looking at me, and I didn't want anybody to feel sorry for me, but I just felt like people looked at me a different way because I just felt incapable.
You felt that when they looked at you, they couldn't see you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They could just see all your problems?
Yes.
It was depressing at the same time, but it was mostly stressful because I felt like there was a lot on me to get better, and I felt like I couldn't find answers. I couldn't, you know, this was my answer, was steroids, and yet the answer was, I mean, I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't getting any better. I couldn't eat. I couldn't function. I wanted to die. Dying would have been an escape from the pain, just the pain and the conditions of not being human. When you take those things that make us human away, being able to care for the ones you love, you know, my job, my role, when you take those things away, what is there to do? What's the point of living?
And then I had the arm relapse, actually in the hospital, because I thought I was having a heart attack as well, and I was having heart palpitations and all sorts. And while I was in hospital, my son was taken into hospital with his first relapse, and he ended up being diagnosed with MS a couple of weeks later. So we were actually in hospital at the same time. He was at boarding school at the time. He'd been home the weekend before, and he'd had some strange facial symptoms and stuff. I thought he had Bell's palsy. He went back to school and ended up losing complete use of one side of his body, and he was 16. So that really motivated me to find a different solution, because at that point I was really looking at the disease-modifying therapies, thinking that this was the solution. Well, I couldn't believe it. I was like, he's my beautiful boy, you know. He's perfect. If you look at him, he's just perfect.
Did you feel like it was your fault?
Yeah.
How is he doing now?
He's okay. He eats Anthony as well, so he's also gluten and dairy free. But he's 90 now, and he hasn't had any severe relapses since then because we got him on the program within about 6 months. He did try the disease-modifying therapy for about 6 months, but he found the self-injection every day really difficult. And in that period of time being on what Anthony put him on, he'd lost quite a lot of weight. So the idea with disease-modifying therapy is that you pinch an inch. So you've got to have an inch of fat to inject yourself somewhere. And as he was losing weight, he just didn't have those inches anymore, which made it quite difficult for him, and also not feeling so great from the therapy itself as well. So he took about 6 months on it, and then he went off. So whether or not that made any difference is difficult to know. But certainly, at that point, I was starting to see all the differences it was making to me. My energy levels were going up, my gut was sorting itself out. My memory problems disappeared. I haven't had a relapse in 3.5 years at all. And nothing that would count as a symptom unless I am eating gluten or dairy, then I have fatigue. I have tingling in my fingers, or even tomatoes affect me like that. So what's really empowering for me with myself and my son is knowing I know what I do works. And although he's got other things he needs to change in his life, he needs to stop smoking, you know, he needs to get to bed earlier, I understand he's a 19-year-old boy. And, you know, he probably needs to drink a bit less. But, you know, he's a normal kid. He tries to be as normal as he can. But he's got to make so many allowances in his life for the fact that he has, you know, all the fatigue that he struggles with, that I find that really difficult. Yeah, I feel he should be able to go out all night and drink with his mates and go to work the next day. You know, that's what I was doing at that age, and he should be able to do that. So it's like something's really been taken away from him from a very young age, because he was only 16 at the time. So yeah, it's hard to watch that. It really is. I'm really grateful. You know, I didn't have it at that age, and it's hard for me to watch him with it. And also all the allowances he has to make, all the allowances his friends have to make. Everybody travels to him to come and see him. He doesn't tend to travel to his friends. So he's often quite isolated if nobody comes, and he's isolated at home because he's too tired to still travel somewhere and so on. So he hasn't got his handle on it just as much as I do yet. You know, he's not as compliant with his supplements. He's not as compliant with lifestyle. He's very compliant with diet, but not so compliant with everything else. Yeah, well, I just want him to have the potential. I want him to reach his potential, whatever that is for him.
And it was just a slow rotting away of my nervous system. And it was so frustrating because none of the doctors knew what was going on, and half of them didn't care. It even started affecting the main nerve going into my hearing. So everything seemed super loud, and I'd hear this screeching noise all the time. It starts peripheral, arms and legs, and then it goes into your trunk. So then you start losing trunk muscles, and so then when you sit, you're kind of limped over because the muscles are starting to weaken. And then once it goes from there, then it starts affecting your blood pressure and your heart and, you know, your breathing. And I mean, it took a good year just to be able to walk a flight of stairs again. I went from being an airline pilot I taught ballet class, I was an athlete, I was very active. I went from that to not even being able to bathe myself. And none of the doctors wanted to address that. They didn't know what it was. And I kept searching, went to multiple other doctors, all MDs and all specialists in their fields. And they said, no, it's a conversion disorder. No, it's all in your head. You're just making this up. Even though I couldn't do anything anymore, I still had my integrity. And then when they attacked my integrity and told me I'm a hypochondriac and I'm making all this up, like I want something, I'm like, no. Or that I'm just trying to get disability payments. That hurt. That hurt worse than the ailment, was to see all these doctors, these so-called professionals who think they know any and everything about medicine, to tell me that I'm making all this up. I'm fighting, and I know God's going to put somebody in my path that's going to help me recover. And it took a while, but he did. I guess he was just waiting for when I was ready. He did. He said, "Listen, Dr. Osborne, so I'm grateful." And he's like, yeah, you're gluten sensitive, all right. You need to stop eating it right away, plus all of the other grains. He was the first person that connected all those dots. He put me on high-dose iodine, and I felt like I could conquer the world. I'm like, where was this 6 months ago? I feel better now than I have felt since before my first cancer. No more. I've recovered this far. I've gotten my vitamins and mineral status where it needs to be. I'm not malnourished now the way I was. My nervous system is repairing itself. We have come so far. I feel like I've crossed the Grand Canyon. We've come so far. I'm not going backward.
At first, I went and saw a reflexologist, and I just thought, well, we'll kind of see what she can give me. And she point blank told me that she thought dairy may be a problem with me and that I would need to kind of clean up my diet. And then when I came across Amy Myers, when I came across her ad over autoimmune disorders, that's when I instantly got online and pre-ordered her autoimmune solution book. And that was my very first, I guess, protocol that I took was her book. No, just her book. While I was waiting on the book to come in the mail, I started juicing, and I specifically had searched juicing for inflammation, and so I came up with a recipe, and I would juice twice a day, and then I just started cutting out little things where if I had bread, it would be something really small, or if I didn't do dairy at all at that point, so I just would start just small until I got the book in, and then once I got the book in, I followed her guide completely. And then about 20 days into it, things started going away and feeling kind of back to normal. And then 30 days into it, I mean, there was no trace of anything. And then once I kind of slowly started bringing other things back into my diet, it starts triggering and flaring things back up. So I'm lactose intolerant, and I don't have dairy at all in my diet now. And I don't know, now there's things that I will kind of have little cheat things on, and I'll have like a corn tortilla or corn chips, but there's still things that I just absolutely will never put back in my body.
Excellent. And so then, so there were the protocols. You did juicing,
Mm-hmm.
you did gluten-free?
Yes, yeah. It was basically, I would say gluten-free, yeah. Mm-hmm. I did do a program, and I've done this several times. There's a program called Whole30, and it's like just this 30-day, I guess you could say it's a detox, and it's you have fruit, vegetables, and meat. And so I did that for 30 days, and I probably did that 2 or 3 times, but.
Did that help?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which I think once you cut everything out once and you figure out what does not work in your body, then you get accustomed to that. So I just try to stay, regardless of, I guess, the program or whatever it is, I try to just stay away from, certain carbs or dairy is my big problem, so I always stay away from dairy. But for the most part, I try to just remain, what would be the word? I don't know. I try to remain regular with my diet, and I try not to. I try not to eat something that I know that I'm going to regret later, as far as it physically affecting my body.
Found Dr. Osborne and came into his office. He sent me through a battery of tests, identified all the areas that I was deficient in nutrient-wise, and put me on some supplements for that. Instead of just putting me on a stay away from wheat diet, he put me on a grain-free diet. So obviously that's a lot more involved, and got much better results. My liver enzymes dropped back down to the normal levels. My anemic situation was resolved. So I basically was able to bypass that steroid protocol that I was going to be put on, and feel much better and much healthier life as a result.
What was it like to get better?
What was it like? No, it was great. Like I mentioned, I was feeling very tired before. The anemia was just dragging me down, and that wasn't normal for me. So this put me back up to a normal level again. I was feeling great again. I mean, as a result here, this past March, I got to kind of fulfill one of my bucket list items, if you will.
What was that?
Did a bike ride across the country. Started off in San Diego, at the beach in San Diego, and rode over all the way to Florida, to St. Augustine Beach. So I would not have been able to do that without the treatment that I've had and the results I've had. So.
What does that mean to you?
Oh, it means a lot. At my age, I wasn't ready to sit back and just be on medication the rest of my life. And I knew I had a lot of other challenges, adventures I wanted to go on and participate in. And I was worried about that when the doctor said, okay, well, we're going to have to put you on steroids. I knew what that had done to my parents, and I didn't want to have that done to me at this age in my life. So yeah, it means a lot to be able to do the things I want to do, not be strapped down by health challenges. I mean, I've got to watch what I eat, but that's a small price to pay for the health.
And you got your life back.
You get your life back, and you can basically, you can do what you want. You take on these new challenges that you were not able to do before.
Well, there's a great quote that says the FBI doesn't do research like a worried mother. And what motivated me to do my research and change my life at that point was my son's diagnosis, absolutely. Because I was willing to have a smaller life. I'd put up with it for 10 years. I didn't think there was an alternative, but there was no way I was going to let my son not have a life. There was just no way. So that's how I found Anthony. We met socially, and we started chatting about these things, and I had a long conversation with him about my son, and I thought, well, in order for my son to believe that this works, I'll have to do it first. I need to prove to him that this works. And by that point, I'd done quite a lot of research myself on, specifically vitamin D, because so many people were talking about it, and there's a lot of research out there that's a bit conflicting in terms of MS. So I was reading the conflicting evidence, if you like, the stuff that didn't agree with the sort of party line. And that's sort of how I found Anthony. And within about 6 months, the difference in me was so marked that my son was happy to see him and happy to try something different. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it still pays off every day. It's still hard work. This is what we were just talking about. It's still hard work going into a restaurant and being the difficult customer, or telling friends, no, I'm sorry, I can't eat the meal you prepared for me. It's still hard work. Waking up a little bit early in the morning if I'm coming to London to make sure I've packed whatever I'm going to eat today. And all my supplements are in, and I've remembered to take mine this morning, and it's still hard work, but it's worth it every day. And sometimes you have that one patient you see as a practitioner where you can bring your own experience into the treatment, and what you're talking of is I'm passionate about it because I know it works. And I'm talking from a point of integrity and knowledge rather than, I think this would be nice if you did, In the same way as with the back pain I had, knowing what I did after my surgery that helped me to stay well and not relapse into more episodes of back pain, I know what works. So I don't suggest things. I tell you it works because I've done it. They do say it, they do say it, which is amazing. My daughter is a little bit older than my son, she's 22, and she'll often just text me, Mom, I'm so grateful you're my mom. So it is nice to be appreciated. It's nice that they both have the objectivity to see the hard work, and they've both learned from it, they've both taken something from that. So I'm grateful that they can see that, we have a good relationship, a great relationship, really.
I had a cough that I had for about 11 months, and it was till 11 in the morning I would cough. It went away after I got off the dairy completely. My shape in my clothing is much better now. My weight did not change at all, but my clothes fit a lot better. They just look better on me. I don't have my blood sugars don't go up and down anymore. I can go all day and eat or not eat and I feel fine. I don't drop things anymore. I used to drop things for the first 3 hours, 4 hours in the morning. I don't do that anymore. My blood pressure was getting higher. It's totally normal now. I also had a flying phobia, which my functional medicine told me was going to be better the next time I went. I thought, there's no way I've had this my whole life. My flying phobia is almost completely gone. It's amazing. The last time we flew overseas, I I was fine the whole time we flew. I didn't even have to take the vitamin pills they gave me that help you relax. I didn't even have to take those. So I don't get sick in high altitudes anymore. I love to go to the mountains, but often when I would go, we'd get up in the high mountains and I would get nauseous and vomit. I don't do that anymore. And I used to hurt myself a lot with strains and backaches and things like that, and I don't get any of that kind of thing anymore. So there's my list.
Start with the gut. That is absolutely the first thing for everybody I see that has an autoimmune disease. Start with the gut, because if you have, and even as an acupuncturist, we start with the gut. Hippocrates said this, I don't know how many thousands of years ago he lived. All diseases start in the gut. So from a protocol point of view, even though this isn't my speciality, I definitely always start with the gut.
Yeah, and how do you do that in your practice? How do you help people?
How I did that for myself was probiotics, cutting out gluten and dairy and deadly nightshades. That's my thing that worked for me. For my son, he's okay with the deadly nightshades, so he doesn't have gluten and dairy. I don't even think he started off on a major probiotic program, whereas mine was quite intense for some time. I think also some people are, like Natasha McBride, recommend the bone broths and the sort of GAPS diet approach, which is what I do tend to ask people to go and read the book at least, but that is hard. That is hard to implement and to do. It takes time and effort, and some people just don't have the motivation or the time or the interest to even take that on. But I think something like the GAPS protocol is a pretty good one to start to heal the gut.
Again, it's a challenge when you first hear that you've got to make this big change in your life. You know, I've got to stop eating my favorite foods, I've got to stop doing this. But if you can just keep your eye on the goal of getting healthy again, living life the way you want to live it again, not being tied down by health issues, that's a small price to pay. Small price to pay.
I remember there was an old English kind of book that I read, and it was about a Christian's journey anyway. The line in the characters would speak was, "Heaven is cheap enough." And it was talking about the Christian journey of those that believe in heaven, and that through living a life of love and goodness and so forth, that is conducive, or it helps to create that path. Heaven is cheap enough, it's worth it.
Oh, no doubt, yes.
Would you say that in regards to your experience of?
Yeah, I would definitely agree to that. Heaven is definitely worth it as well. Believe me, I'm a believer in that as well. But yeah, for the journey that I'm going through, the sacrifice I'm making for the health is a very small sacrifice for the benefit that I'm getting.
That's awesome, man. Tell me, did your faith help you with your recovery? Was that a part of your regimen?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm a believer, and there's a lot of prayer went into that. My wife there was prayer from all of our family on the situation, because, again, we didn't really want to have to deal with some of these terrible health issues that can often come along with that diagnosis. So, I think prayer helped. Faith that that if I do my part, that God will do their part. But I've got to also take the first steps. I can't just sit back and say, "Heal me." I need to put some action to that prayer.
My message would be to be open-minded and to be accepting and to do your research. And that you have to accept it on your own terms and on your own time. I know I was very kind of stubborn and hard-headed over it, thinking that there was no way that food was going to affect how I felt, and that there was no way that food was going to solve my problem. And so I was real closed-minded. So I would just say be open-minded and accepting of what there is to offer, and to just research about it.
Yeah. So what is it like to have your wife better again?
Oh, it's worth the world. I mean, this is something that money can't buy, and you can't earn. You have to make yourself better, and I wouldn't trade this for anything. It's amazing. It's what everybody should get to experience. A normal relationship, a healthy relationship.
When's your anniversary coming up?
It was in May. Yeah, so we just had it.
And how was that?
It was good. For the first time last November, we got to take a vacation.
That was our first vacation since our honeymoon.
Yeah. We stayed 4 nights in a log cabin in the middle of the woods.
How good was it?
It was amazing.
I think within about 20 days of me changing my lifestyle, symptoms were basically gone. And then I guess about 30 to 45 days into it, I had no symptoms or any sort of trace of me ever having an issue. So it felt almost rewarding that I did something and I got a reward for it. So I had not worn pants or any sort of shorts, and I've shown my legs at all in about 4 years. So it was nice to be able to not have to worry about somebody seeing a rash on my legs, or I never got to go outside because a lot of prescription medication I was on, I wasn't allowed to go outside. Couldn't have sun exposure, so it was nice to be able to just go outside and not have to worry about it or feel like anybody's staring at me a certain way. So it felt like it was just a reward.
Yeah, that's great. I think you needed that reward.
Yes, I think so too.
And something to help motivate you.
Yes.
And then you mentioned like your legs, and it sounds like you started to feel more confident.
Yes.
Is that right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And what was it like for you to be able to also be able to feel like yourself, and then, you know, find your own kind of beauty and attractiveness? But what was that like to find that both for yourself and even for your husband?
Well, we could kind of go back to normal and live a normal lifestyle. We were able to, you know, go somewhere and go to the park and walk our dog, or we were able to have a picnic. We were able to just enjoy normal things that young people get to do instead of being trapped in a house. So it was nice because it's almost like we kind of got our life back.
I think you did get your life back.
Yes, I did.
You got it back, didn't you?
Yes.
And that house would have become like a prison for you.
Mm-hmm. A dungeon. Yes.
Did you feel like you know, a princess that had been banished to a dungeon?
Yes, that's exactly how I felt.
Depends on what you define as life. You know, maybe MS wasn't going to kill me, but it certainly was stealing years and quality of life from me. And even my 16-year-old, my son now at 19, this week he said to me, "Mom, MS has given us more than it's taken away." And what he means by that is that it has connected us to a healthier lifestyle, to the point that we have more energy and we have more of a gratitude for the energy we have, I suppose. And it's just given us a different approach to life. The fact that we've had this autoimmune disease and have approached it in a certain way has been a gift, rather than the person who does just, you know, take the drug the doctor gives because there's nothing really that serious wrong with you. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's not like you're looking at a life of disability or even imminent death. You just have a little bit of high blood pressure, or you just, so nobody sort of gives you that picture of, you know, within 5 years you won't be walking, or within 10 years, you know, and you don't have the hours in your day that other people have. So certainly, yeah, it's given me more life in my life, in my hours, more life in the hours that I've got. Don't know if it's given me more hours. Bus can hit me when I walk outside. Well, I suppose what I would say is that if you feel like you're not well, and people know when they're not well. I mean, we're intelligent beings, and if you feel like you're not functioning at your optimum and you're not achieving what you want to every day because either you're too tired, or you don't feel well, or you're in pain, or something just doesn't feel right. And I see this, you know, specifically people with like thyroid stuff, they just don't feel right. They don't quite know what's wrong, but they just don't feel right. I would really encourage them to at least research health and research somebody who can help them, rather than just being fobbed off and told that either there's nothing wrong with them, that it's all in their head, here's a drug that will help, you know. Make the effort to research, make the effort, because it pays off big time. It really pays off big time. I don't have a moment in my day where I don't appreciate the fact that I could walk here from Oxford Circus Station. It's 7 minutes walk. And I can do it. And it doesn't sound like a big thing. But it is. It really is.
Are you happy?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy. I'm happy I can wear my heels. I almost wore them today just to show off, but I didn't. Absolutely. And I'm so grateful that I am the person that I am, that I've got the brain in my head. It's like Dr. Zeus says, you've got a brain in your head and feet in your shoes, and you can go wherever you choose. And that's the big thing, you know, use the brain in your head. And let your feet take you to a healthy life where you feel that you're reaching your potential, that you feel that you are getting the life and the hours rather than just the 24 hours in your day. You know, put some life in those hours.
This was an awesome episode. So many great stories. I hope that you all enjoyed it. This really helps us to see that there is hope. I know the journey of autoimmune disease can be tough sometimes, but it doesn't have to be discouraging. I know that so many of the experts in one autoimmune disease are doing their very best to help you survive with your particular condition. The problem is they haven't had the opportunity to learn the functional medicine principles that allowed all of the people you've just heard from to not only survive with an autoimmune disease, but to thrive in a new life with a new lifestyle. As these people went through their experience, not only were they healed, but they also grew as a person. Sometimes you might wonder, why do I have to go through this? Why do I have to be sick? I don't have the answer to these questions, but one thing I know for sure is that by going through these experiences and getting to the other side, you are able to, and many feel a calling to, teach others about this message. The same way these survivors are sharing their stories with you, you will be able to one day share your survival story to those who are suffering. This is going to be a chain reaction, and we are committed to see it continuing on. Have you seen the movie Pay It Forward? The takeaway message in the movie is do something unexpectedly good for someone else with no expectation of reward, and just ask them to pay it forward with an action for someone else. What a beautiful message. Have you ever paid the toll for the car behind you and then just driven on? Has anyone ever done that for you? What a beautiful thing to do, right? And it cost you what? 40 cents or $1? Help us to defeat this number one cause of getting sick and dying, our immune system attacking self, and share this information to your friends and family members. This mechanism, unrecognized by almost all professionals, can be arrested, stopped in its tracks when people are taught this information. Be a part of the movement, and together we can help reverse this devastating disease.